rowing into Wonder of Lake. Jane had always been an adventurous spirit. From the moment she could walk, she wanted to explore every corner of the world. She loved the woods behind her house, the way the breeze would rustle through the trees, and the colorful flowers that dotted the landscape. But despite her love for her home and surroundings, she had always dreamed of a more daring adventure, one that took her far from everything familiar. It was on a summer day when her wish began to come true. Her parents had arranged a trip to visit her uncle's village, a remote place she had never seen. Her uncle, a quiet and kind man, lived on the outskirts of a sleepy town nestled beside a pristine lake. The village was simple but magical in its own way, and Jane had always been curious about it. She couldn't wait to see what lay beyond the borders of her small world. The drive to the village took hours, but Jane was full of anticipation, her heart racing with excitement. She gazed out the car window, watching the countryside unfold in all its natural beauty. The roads grew narrower as they neared the village, the trees thickening and the air fresher. When they arrived, the village greeted them with its serene charm. The houses were made of wood and stone, with thatched roofs that seemed to blend into the landscape as if the village had always belonged there. The scent of the earth was fresh, mixed with a hint of pine from the nearby woods. Her uncle, a robust man with a welcoming smile, greeted them at the door of his cottage. His house was simple but cozy, with a view of the shimmering lake just a short walk away. As Jane stood on the porch, looking out at the water, she felt something stir inside her, a pull, a curiosity, as though the lake itself was calling to her. After they had settled in, her uncle, noticing her fascination with the lake, offered to show her around. "How about a little adventure, Jane?" he said, his eyes twinkling. Jane's heart skipped a beat. An adventure? With her uncle? This was exactly what she had been waiting for. She eagerly nodded, and they set off toward the lake. The sound of birds chirping, the rustling of leaves, and the soft splash of water filled the air as they made their way to the shore. When they arrived, Jane's eyes grew wide with wonder. The lake before her was more magnificent than she could have imagined. The water was crystal clear, reflecting the sky above like a mirror. Small boats were gently bobbing along the shore, and she could see people rowing them slowly, gliding across the surface as though they were part of the lake itself. The sun shone down, casting a golden glow over everything, and the world felt as though it had slowed down just for her. "I've always loved this place," her uncle said, watching Jane's expression. "There's something magical about it. You can't help but feel at peace when you're here." But for Jane, it wasn't just peace she felt. It was an urge, a longing to experience the lake more deeply, to discover what lay beneath the surface. She could see the ripples in the water, the way it moved around the rocks and the plants, and it made her wonder about the creatures that lived beneath. Her gaze shifted to one of the boats, and she watched as a group of children paddled out into the middle of the lake, laughing and calling to one another. "Uncle," she said suddenly, her voice full of excitement, "can I row a boat?" Her uncle chuckled. "I was wondering when you'd ask. You're just like your mother, always ready for an adventure." Jane beamed up at him, her heart pounding with anticipation. "Please." He looked out at the lake for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but you'll need to be careful. The water is peaceful, but it can be tricky to navigate. I'll help you, of course." With her uncle's guidance, Jane climbed into a small rowboat. It rocked gently beneath her, and for a moment, she was still, taking in the beauty of the lake, the reflection of the trees along the shore, the soft rush of water against the boat. It felt like stepping into another world, one that was both new and familiar at once. Her uncle showed her how to hold the oars properly, and together, they pushed off from the shore. At first, Jane struggled to row, her arms not quite strong enough to move the boat in a straight line. But her uncle was patient, guiding her hands and offering encouragement. With each stroke, she felt the boat glide more smoothly through the water. The more she rowed, the more the lake seemed to come alive around her. The water seemed to respond to her presence, almost as if it welcomed her. The boat moved with ease, and Jane found herself laughing, feeling the rush of freedom that came with controlling her little vessel. She felt like she was flying, her spirit soaring over the surface of the water. She looked out at the distant shoreline, where wildflowers grew in clusters, and she saw the towering trees that lined the edge of the forest, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. As they rowed further out into the lake, Jane's curiosity grew stronger. She wanted to know more about the creatures that lived beneath the water, about the plants that swayed with the current, about the world that existed just below the surface. Her mind raced with possibilities, imagining what it would be like to dive into the cool water and explore its depths. "Uncle," she said, her voice filled with wonder, "do you think there are underwater creatures here?" Her uncle smiled. "Oh, definitely. The lake is home to many fish, frogs, and even some turtles. If you're lucky, you might spot one." Jane's eyes grew wide with excitement. She leaned over the edge of the boat, peering down into the clear water. She could see the shadows of fish swimming gracefully below, darting between the rocks and plants. She wished she could dive in and join them, to explore their world and play with them in the cool depths of the lake. As they continued to row, Jane's uncle told her stories of the lake, how it had been a place of peace for generations of villagers, how it had witnessed countless adventures, and how it had always been a source of wonder and magic for those who took the time to appreciate it. Time seemed to slow as they glided across the water, and Jane felt as though she were in a dream. The sunlight flickered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the surface of the lake. The air smelled sweet, full of earth and fresh water, and the world around her seemed to fall away, leaving only her and the lake, the boat, and her uncle. Eventually, they turned back toward the shore, and Jane reluctantly took her hands off the oars. As they approached the dock, she looked over her shoulder one last time, taking in the beauty of the lake, the way the water shimmered in the sunlight, and the sense of peace that filled the air. When they reached the shore, her uncle helped her out of the boat, and Jane stood for a moment, gazing out at the lake. Her heart was full of joy, and she knew that this moment would stay with her forever. The adventure had been everything she had hoped for and more. It was as though she had discovered a secret world, a world where magic and adventure lived in every ripple of water. As they walked back to her uncle's house, Jane felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experience. She had always dreamed of adventure, but now she had experienced something truly magical. The lake, the boat, the creatures beneath the water, and the love and wisdom of her uncle. Everything had come together to create a memory she would cherish forever. That night, as she lay in bed, Jane closed her eyes and smiled. She could still feel the rocking of the boat beneath her, the warmth of the sun on her face, and the thrill of discovering something new. She knew that no matter where life took her, she would always carry the magic of the lake with her, a memory etched deep in her heart, a reminder of the adventure that had shaped her forever. And though many adventures would come her way, none would ever quite match the magic of that day on the enchanted waters.